There we go. In the upper right, he shot the red team, but it's in the blue pieces. It's HeRoMaRinE.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left for Cloud9. It is GuMiho. And I think this is going to be a really interesting primer match for both players, because this is kind of where we get to see which one of them is really in form, and are either player going to do something a little bit funky. We've already got GuMiho going for a 1-Rax expand, which, well, that's very bold. That is extremely bold in this matchup. Even with the ability to defend, or even if your opponent doesn't go for a proxy 2-Rax Reaper or proxy Marauder or something like that, it can still be tricky to deal with just regular Cyclone aggression. Any kind of attack coming your way. Obviously, you get that bunker, the natural, it makes you a little bit safer, but it does make things a little bit difficult to defend. But if you get away with it, you can get away with, well, you can get up to about a 4-worker lead going into the mid game, which is a big deal.
Yeah, I think the if though is the question there, Steadfast. You say if you can get away with it, it's important. It's a nice thing, but TVT is just so explosive. Certainly recently with Cyclone drops and other things, but even more than that, your classic barracks double gas factory expand that we saw HeRoMaRinE go for in this game is very much, it's predicated upon, yeah, you know, you're defensive if you need to be, but you decide to get aggressive, you have 3 Reapers in, or you have 5 Reapers and 3 Hellions, or you have something else that allows you to make what you want. But look at this. That is a very quick tech lab coming here off the expand build.
Yeah, this is a very, we've talked about Cyclones, we talked about special preparation. This feels like about as much of an anti-Cyclone play as you can get. Now, if you've ever been on the NA ladder or even the EU ladder, you know, around like 4.5 to 5.5K, there are some Terrans out there that really love to open up quick Marauders with concussive shells, and this usually goes into mech. Now, I'm not going to say that that's what happens here. Certainly not. GuMiho is, well, he's better than your average 5K player. We can say that with some degree of confidence. But the idea could be similar, and this is going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for now, this one SCV seems like it's going to go down. But actually, the Marauders on the high ground, they say, nope, run away. This is not going to work. So first blush, the Reaper, sure, fine. You know, it shows up, but this double Marauder idea is really shutting things down for the time being, as we see Cyclones out, natural on the way from HeRoMaRinE. But for the moment, Steadfast, we talked about how going for this quick expand build can build you with this advantage in the mid game. For now, at least, it seems like GuMiho's gotten away with it. And, hey, he's got Stim on the way, so I know we're talking about that 4.5 to 5.5-ish Macking Terran bracket. GuMiho, considerably higher in just about everything.
Yeah, and it's just because the idea exists doesn't mean that that's how things are going to go, and it's certainly not how things have gone. GuMiho must have cut an SCV here or there because he's only up about 3 workers, but he did get away with this 1-Rax expand, and you're going to be very happy about that. Now, obviously, the concussive shells upgrade is extremely fast. Going straight into Stim, this is going to be a super fast Stim with so many Marauders on the field. This feels like if HeRoMaRinE had committed super hard to Cyclones, maybe GuMiho could have hit a timing and killed him, but HeRoMaRinE did transition as soon as he saw the Marauders, only making the 1 Cyclone straight into siege tanks behind that. So good decision from HeRoMaRinE. We're going to see a little drop coming into the main base, and he will get his opponent's Cyclone, and that's a pretty nice start for HeRoMaRinE.
That it is kind of a rough, really kind of a rough targeting coming out of GuMiho, because of course you want to lock onto your opponent's Cyclone as your Cyclone's getting locked onto to make sure at least there's some level of mutually assured destruction. But now GuMiho, a quad Marauder drop into the main base. Now, unfortunately, he's not going to drop on top of the tank, but this is a ton of building killing pressure here. Marines will fall, certainly, but looks like for right now, HeRoMaRinE is going to find himself supply blocked, which is not necessarily what you want. But really the thing here, and we're going to see GuMiho do this now, is you're looking for the tech labs. You're looking to shut down this tech of HeRoMaRinE, shut down, slow down the development of his army into the mid game. So for now, he loses a couple Marauders, the single tech lab on the factory, I think you would have loved to go as now this Marauder finally gets on top of the tank. One dies though. I think you would have loved to get the tech lab on the starport as well if you're really gunning for stuff to make sure that some sort of interference matrix is not really as viable, but for now that's not really going to be a thing. And Steadfast, defensive Marauder drops. Was that on your bingo card here for today?
No, it certainly was not. And he did get the siege tank in the main base. Ooh, Viking will stay alive. Good job from GuMiho. So he snipes his opponent's medevac, kills the Cyclone, does lose quite a few SCVs, but in terms of the army trades, he's doing a fair bit better. And this game, yeah, his game has gone off the rails already. It will kind of stabilize a little bit, but this is something you never see in an early game TVT. 6 Marauders, a Viking, and 2 medevacs at around the 6-minute mark. And you've got stim and concussive shells, and now he goes into double engineering bays. Like, this is about as non-standard as it gets in terms of openers, but it is going to stabilize and go into a very normal mid-game from there. But GuMiho's going to have these Marauders to play with, and I wonder if he'll try and make anything more happen with them. Oh, as we do see the Ravens trying to get in here. Viking doesn't have a lot of HP, so can't really chase because auto turrets would kill that off, so I think that's a good decision to let that go. But at least he checks the move. But the big thing, of course, is those Ravens for HeRoMaRinE. He's got that interference matrix. He's got 3 of them. There's a lot of potential in these tank v tank wars when your opponent does not have Ravens and you do.
Yeah, you know, Steadfast, it's funny, or I guess another benefit of Marauders, right? You drop an auto turret, right? That's a mechanical unit that does take I want to say that takes bonus damage from Marauders. So this is the new meta. I would want to go back to something you said though. You said that, look, this is not what we generally see in a TVT early game. This is not what we see in any early game. Building this type of composition, doesn't matter what it is. It's not a TVC. It's not a TVP. You're just not going to see it. But I love how active he's being with this random Marauder drop. Does it do a ton of damage versus Marines? No. But you have a double drop with it. You can cut off a Marine here. You can cut off a Marine there. You can shut down this outer ring of vision that HeRoMaRinE is trying to set up for himself. And that maybe, potentially, it's what GuMiho is looking for. Unlock some sort of pressure on the third base. So for right now, he's going to dive right on top of this tank and knock it down. Yeah, repair is not going to be good enough, and he will lose a lot for this. This was energy on auto turrets. This was a tank going down, and with his army right here, Steadfast, this looks like it might be an opportunity for GuMiho.
It certainly could be. If HeRoMaRinE doesn't respond very quickly, just the stimmed Marines could be big, but there was a tank that was dropped back and on top of this. Nice target fire from HeRoMaRinE, or at least the siege tank killed the Marauders, and that does mean that tank stays alive in the mineral line. If HeRoMaRinE hadn't gotten that tank there, this could have been a very dangerous situation. Instead, he will at least prevent this from getting super out of hand. That gas geyser is in jeopardy, and that's not exactly ideal, but this could have been so much worse for HeRoMaRinE, so getting that tank to the low ground helped a lot.
Well, you know, as we say that, as this push happens, there's a push or a drop coming in from HeRoMaRinE on the other side. Gets 5 SCVs and into the main base. So GuMiho rapidly realizing he wants to get something done, but he gets aggroed in, so that's not going to happen. And now all of a sudden, this is the setup where HeRoMaRinE, yeah, he's shoved in a little bit. Yeah, he's worried about the Marauder pressure, but he's actually the one that gets a lot more done in this game. So all we talk about GuMiho closing the map vision out, getting damage done, moving out with his Marauders. At the end of the day, it's HeRoMaRinE with a 30 army supply lead, 8 workers, and yeah, even the 1-1. His combat shields are going to be done right now. At the very least, there's 0 chance this 4th base ever completes.
Yeah, the main problem for HeRoMaRinE right now is the lack of 2-2, but like you said, he's got a big army supply advantage. He's still got those Ravens. Interference matrices is going to be good. We got a big surround coming on in, but the siege up for HeRoMaRinE is going to be very difficult to deal with, if not game ending.
Look at that. We get the full 270 surround, everything that you're supposed to do in a TVT, but unfortunately GuMiho just a little bit too far behind, and that does not work at all. HeRoMaRinE takes game 1 against all comers, or at least all madness, all mischief, all Marauders. There we go, all Marauders.
Yeah, that was to call that game bizarre completely undersells that, but very well done from HeRoMaRinE. I really got to give an extra shout out to that siege tank being picked up and dropped from the main base in towards that third mineral line, because that really feels like that kept that big push that GuMiho was going for. You mentioned he screened the push very well. He killed off those Marines that were guarding the approach. and shutting down that vision. But HeRoMaRinE kept his head calm. He got that siege tank back into position, replaced the siege tank from earlier, and that really kept that from snowballing out of control. And then he just took a good defensive fight and kind of crushed it. And those Ravens, they were the star of that mid game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they didn't get a ton of damage done aggressively, I guess, until the very end. But, you know, not a ton of auto turret harassing things, but shutting down the pressure, providing that buffer of a wall to make sure that GuMiho couldn't attack into the third base, and buying that time for the drop to get damage done to start to pull GuMiho around a little bit was certainly absolutely worthwhile. And at the end of the day, that means that HeRoMaRiNE's up 1 as we go into game 2. And of course, in the bottom right, in the blue, he's actually up a game off of really weird game 1. It's HeRoMaRiNE.
And his opponent trying to play the anti-meta build super hard. Didn't quite work out for him, but can he mix it up in game 2? For Cloud9, it's GuMiho. And it's so interesting because it really did feel like it was GuMiho making the plays in that game for a while. But HeRoMaRinE, you gotta hand it to him. He stayed super poised, calm, cool, collected, never panicked, and he just kind of let the game come to him. First of all, the decision, of course, to, once he saw those Marauders, not go heavy into the Cyclones. Even his opener, the fact that he went for Reaper Hellion and didn't go straight Cyclones, like super fast, you know, maybe one Reaper right into Cyclones or immediate Cyclone drop, meant that Marauder play didn't get its big payoff in the very early game. And then, yeah, just transitioned calmly into siege tanks once he saw the Marauders. He just never panicked in the face of a build that he's probably not seen very often.
Yeah, and it's funny you talk about that build. I think it's something that has legs. I think it's something that is, there's a lot of TVT here in Group A. There's a lot of TVT in Group B. So, you know, I think we're going to maybe see some room for this to get iterated on. But I was looking at that, you know, GuMiho is he's getting aggressive. He's the one that really was defining the tempo of that game. And I took my eye off the supply for like 30 seconds. And I'm like, you're right. I think this is looking good for Gumi. He's got his third base, fourth base on the way. He's got all this pressure. The push seems worthwhile. And then you look down and you realize that he's been doing all of these crazy things. He's been committing to all of these Marauders, which of course, one Marauder is 2 Marines of production. It's you slow down your production in other ways. And he didn't get enough done with it. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like this 30 army supply deficit. Like, well, you know, I guess you got to get more done. I guess you have to do more than sniping a bunch of tech labs and killing some tanks. I guess, and getting that nice economic advantage. I guess you do have to do more than that. So for now, we're not going to see that. This is just Barracks Double Gas Factory Expo, this build that has come to define TVT almost. And well, the other thing that's come to define TVT is we do have Cyclones on the way, but only for GuMiho. HeRoMaRinE, he's leaning more into Reapers and Hellions. And one thing Beyond has shown us over the last month or so is that there are opportunities. You can break these Cyclone players if you go mass Reaper Hellion, but I guess that's not going to happen anyways. You know, HeRoMaRinE just going to be into it just a little bit slower.
Yeah, no, it's he's just trying to put on some pressure here. Does run into his opponent's Cyclone, and he's able to get out with the Reaper. That's obviously quite nice. This is not the, you know, so it's one thing the Cyclone has done is given stability to the early game. And in these old school Reaper Hellion versus Reaper Hellion wars, if you lost an early Reaper, you could get snowballed. It wasn't that common when there was like 4 or 5 units out, but it could happen. So the fact that we have, you know, the Cyclone setup that we do now, it makes it less common. But of course, GuMiho, as we can see, will be going for that Cyclone drop. And HeRoMaRinE, once again, he's gone into this fast siege tank setup. So maybe he just really likes the fast tank play and really wants to avoid that Cyclone play as much as possible. And I mean, that would make some sense to me. But GuMiho, this time, he is not going to be skipping the Ravens, I don't think, unless he's going for something crazy like Banshees. But down 1-0 in a series, that would be a little bit wild. But it will be up to this medevac drop to see what it can get done.
Yeah, he is certainly massing more Cyclones than in the drops. He's got 4 on the map, but for right now, of course, Cyclones, they shred SCVs with that bonus damage. So he's going to look for something. Doesn't look like it's like a single SCV at the start as the Reapers try to chase them down. You get that one. But again, as long as GuMiho can keep this alive, not get some awkward lock on and some range shots, just like what's happening right now. I was going to say, as long as he can keep it alive, it's good. And he does. But this drop is so much less utility now on, what is that, 21 HP? Good luck diving in onto something. You got to hope you find some opportunity when there's nothing there. But at least the Reapers dived into the main base, and they got a couple more SCVs. So it was a distraction, Steadfast. It was all about getting those Reapers in the main base, because this doesn't seem like it's going to get much done anymore.
That was so bold. 21 HP on that medevac with 2 Cyclones, and he goes back in. No other Terran in the world would do that, I don't think. I think it's only GuMiho who has that level of insanity. No one else is that kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? I think
he
Bunny
got
might
out,
have that
but
YOLO I
spirit,
really do not like that he did that. Sorry?
I was like, Bunny might have that YOLO spirit, but yeah, you're right. That is so incredibly bold. And now, well, HeRoMaRiNE's trying to punish him. He's got 2 Ravens. Interference matrix is going to be done in about 15 seconds or so. He's got this heavy tank count, and well, there's only one tank for GuMiho, and in fact, it's not even sieged up just yet. So HeRoMaRiNE, this army, because he pretty much skipped the Cyclone stage, is a lot stronger at this point, assuming he doesn't lose the Ravens to lock-ons, which for the moment, that doesn't seem likely.
That was a huge tank shot on those Marines. Fortunately, there was a medevac that came back home. And I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one from earlier. So the fact that he kept that alive is a big deal. That one siege tank shot ends up kind of being a moot point. But if there was another tank shot behind that, that would have been gigantic. As it is, HeRoMaRiNE's not really able to do anything with this little Raven push just yet. GuMiho did not get interference matrix, though, which is quite surprising to me. It's not that you... I don't know. It's just such a high value upgrade. And we are seeing HeRoMaRiNE. He's going to try and re-engage here. Interference matrices will not come down just yet. It is going to be potentially auto turrets. Oh, Cyclone's able to get one of the Ravens of HeRoMaRiNE. That's a big deal. GuMiho will drive this back.
Yeah, I'm suddenly not liking what HeRoMaRiNE's doing anymore. Yes, the pressure, I think he had a really good timing that he maybe could have found. Combat or interference matrix done. A decent tank count, a better tank count, and that first tank shot you talked about was really nice. But now that we get a little bit further, it's like, well, you know, you don't have medevacs, your opponent does, your Vikings aren't across the map yet. It gets a little bit more awkward. Well, GuMiho's now the one that wants to take advantage of that medevac count, and into the main base he's gonna go. And Steadfast, there is not a lot here. It's all outside the third base, because that's what HeRoMaRiNE is trying to tank in GuMiho. It's a full siege up of the main base. Importantly, Stim, halfway done. This is eminently targetable. In fact, one Raven will fall, but the rest of the auditors are going to get spammed right on top of it. No upgrades for HeRoMaRiNE, not for the time being, but now interference matrix is going to go down on top of these tanks, and that should shut this down. But it is a significant production deficit, a significant tech deficit that HeRoMaRiNE is going to find off this drop.
It certainly is. Now, he did keep both of his Ravens that were alive in this. Still alive. Oh, Vikings not able to get those medevacs. I'm actually very surprised that he goes after the medevacs and not the Ravens. The medevacs, first of all, they've got boost, so they're much more likely to get away anyways. Second of all, the Ravens are the juicier target, even without interference matrix. Oh, looks like a little bit of F2 syndrome right there. Liberators trying to kill the Ravens, but kind of derping up a little bit. Will ultimately get the kill, even if it takes them, you know, forever and a day to kill these off. My God, this is quite comical watching Liberators kill Ravens.
They're just
Holy
hauling back
crap,
to the
that
days
took so long.
They're just hauling back to the days when, you know, 3 Liberators would one-shot mutas, and you're like, their anti-air feels really good. That they're just trying to reclaim that, Dave. That's all this is.
Yeah, they're not. That's not them anymore. I will say, and you mentioned it, of course, the fact that Stim was sniped, it means HeRoMaRiNE's got to be really defensive for a long time, it feels like. And in TVT, the ability to make plays, I mean, it's just so huge. GuMiho is one of those players that loves to do stuff like this, where he's expanding to the 4th base on location. And after sniping Stim, that's obviously a really great play in general. HeRoMaRiNE, though, I do like what he's doing with the Vikings. He knows he's kind of on the back foot. I like that he's getting another tech lab as well, so that he can get combat shields at the same time. Main problem, he does need an armory in order to keep the upgrades going. Snipe on a couple of medevacs here. Meanwhile, Vikings going to try and pick a fight against the Liberators. Very, very disjointed setup. And it feels like GuMiho is kind of trying to out-chaos HeRoMaRiNE. He tried to do it in game 1. Didn't quite work out. He's trying to do it again in game 2 to limited success, but that worker count is just massive for GuMiho. 81 SCVs. HeRoMaRinE on a much lower worker count, but a much higher army supply.
But, you know, Steadfast, you talk about out chaos and things not working out properly. The one thing he did do, he did snipe a Raven with that Viking run-in. So he lost a Viking for it. He lost a couple medevacs for it. But he did shut a Raven down, which, if in the balance of things, if we're talking about trying to break HeRoMaRinE now that he's on 3 bases and he's got some upgrades. He's missing his 2-2 getting started, but he does have his 1-1, or at least his +1 done. The combat shields are on the way. Like, he's got stim. Knocking those Ravens down, having a Raven advantage does maybe give you something. I don't know that it's worth losing 2 Viking or 2 medevacs and a Viking, but I guess that, you know, was some of the idea. Certainly HeRoMaRinE is locked down pretty heavily on this situation. He's got 4 tanks on the 3rd, a couple more floating around. And, you know, equally as important, he knows what's happening. He drops that scan on the north side. HeRoMaRinE's able to react to it, which means that from this point onwards, yeah, GuMiho's he's up a base, absolutely. But HeRoMaRinE's doing a really nice job of keeping himself safe, not dying. And now his army supply once again on this 1-1 timing with combat shields done, all of his upgrades finally ready, liberators as well. He's up 40 army supply, Steadfast. And yeah, army supply doesn't mean as much as we think it means in TVT all the time, but it's still 40 army supply.
Yeah, GuMiho is way down in siege tanks as well. It is 9 tanks to 3. There's more Marines for HeRoMaRinE. HeRoMaRinE is ultra dedicated. He's actually gone up to 6 barracks instead of just 5. Oh, he's going to go for the break attempt right here. There's the interference matrices. He's going to get the siege tanks. Oh, GuMiho did get the unsiege, but he loses all of the Vikings there. That is full air superiority now to HeRoMaRinE. If he makes liberators, GuMiho might be checkmated. There is the Widowmine that, yes, was built. I thought it was for sure a mistake. It's somehow still sieged up here. HeRoMaRinE, oh my god, if that Widowmine, that Widowmine might be the MVP of this.
Okay, pay attention to it for right now. It's on the backside. The concave's good. HeRoMaRinE's just gonna stim right past it though. Widowmine's good. It's not good enough. Not really here. The tank count is still so strong. Marines can't break the planetary. Not by themselves. They are not strong enough. Certainly not. But as the tank count continues to move forward here, the big thing you pointed it out, Steadfast, just a minute ago, the tank count for GuMiho is not good enough. Not in the slightest here. So yeah, Marines did die. Sure, fine. GuMiho's going to have that 2 upgrade advantage right now. He's going to lose his 3rd base. And at a certain point, Marine counts are good, Marine upgrades are good. If you don't have that strong tank backline, it really doesn't mean as much as it used to.
No, the siege tanks are still so important. They're the kings of this matchup, and they have been for years. Now, there is a well-placed tank on the high ground of HeRoMaRinE. We do have a potential, or pardon me, of GuMiho. We have a potential flank cutting off reinforcements. 2-2 is not quite done yet for HeRoMaRinE, but if he can get if he can survive up to this 2-2 without getting broken. Actually, there's not that many Marines here. We are going to see GuMiho going for the break. The Marines from the back will be very valuable. Here they come. It's a 360 surround. It is going to be a break, but that was so expensive. And the tanks are actually still alive for a moment. Oh my god, they survived so much longer than I expected. HeRoMaRinE is now up 30-ish army supply, 20, I don't know, it's oscillating a whole bunch. He killed a bunch of bases. GuMiho does still have that base on the left side that I don't think HeRoMaRinE was expecting. And HeRoMaRinE was ultra dedicated with this. Oh, actually, he's going in for round 2. He's going to jump on this siege tank in the back line. We'll be able to take that one down. GuMiho is so far on the back foot, but weirdly, he's still in it economically a little bit. But I think HeRoMaRinE just has too much bulk in this army and too much momentum.
It's one of those funny things where GuMiho, he's been so greedy that the big punch that should have knocked him out of the game actually didn't. Because again, he's just so greedy. But this tank line is going to knock down like 5 or 6 SCVs, again, shelling away at the planetary. And GuMiho, his supply is getting better. It was a 40 or 50 army supply lead. Now it's only 10. But the thing you talked about, the positioning is so nice for HeRoMaRinE right now. He's sectioned off the natural in the 3rd base. It's really hard for GuMiho to find that break that he's looking for. So he's not even going to try. He's going to get on top of this army on the other side, reinforcements. And HeRoMaRinE, his 4th base is not even a planetary just yet. This is a lot of damage potential coming out of GuMiho. HeRoMaRinE brings his entire army back home. And yes, it's not going to be nearly as many SCVs as you might otherwise like, and one medevac will fall. But this releases all of the pressure. And now GuMiho, he's a 4-base Terran. It's a quad, well, I guess it's a triple orbital, but he's got the planetary. His economy is not that bad because he was so greedy earlier on. And that chokehold position that HeRoMaRinE had, it's just not there anymore.
No, but he does check that watchtower, sees the base on the left side, and GuMiho did not have defenses. He's got units on the way, but another 11 SCVs go down. That's a huge find. HeRoMaRinE will actually lose one of the medevacs and a fair number of Marines, but there is a counter drop on the other side of the map as GuMiho is trying to deny HeRoMaRiNE's 4th base from mining. Able to do so for a little while. I really gotta say that counterattack from GuMiho is the only thing that is, it's the only reason he's still in this game at this point. He was able to trade well against the Marines. I think he killed a ton for, you know, just, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 Marines. He killed probably like 20, got a few SCVs, kept his opponent back, and like you said, pulled his opponent back across the map. But we've got so much chaos here on hard lead. GuMiho dropping on top of his opponent's tanks. HeRoMaRinE dropping behind the mineral line of the 4th base. There is a big army of HeRoMaRinE kind of just waiting in the middle. GuMiho is going to get partially driven back, but he's got a couple of tanks to reinforce this push. Can HeRoMaRinE make the break? It looks like he should be able to.
This is a perfect timing for HeRoMaRinE right now. His 3-3 finished like 5 seconds before GuMiho's, and now it's a quad drop into the main base, and GuMiho finally gets knocked out of here. But what a game 2. That was wild. I mean, I know game 1 was wild because who opens Marauders in a TVT? But game 2, as that happened, what a wild game 2.
Yeah, that was that whole series was just, I think it was something that none of us were prepared for. Pure chaos in terms of the build orders. But I gotta say, I think a lot of people were a little bit unsure about HeRoMaRiNE's form coming into IEM Katowice. He hasn't been playing quite as much, but he might have that, you know, that rest buff that sometimes you get where you take a little bit of time off, you think about the game a little bit more, you kind of ease off on the grind just a little bit, and he looks really good. Like really, really good. I did not really have HeRoMaRinE necessarily as making it out of this group, but after this start, his odds have improved dramatically. Yeah, no,
I kind of had him maybe not last place in the group, but I had him pretty low down. Certainly not in advancing, but taking down our Yon Shipping finalist, our GSL finalist from season 3. Down 2-0 like that, I can't say one, right? It's early on. You play 5 series in a group stage, but going down 0-1 in a group like this doesn't feel all that good. Especially, again, when you're looking at a HeRoMaRinE that is maybe not one of these players that we expect to see quite as much. But Steadfast, we have miles to go before we sleep. We have more games to talk about, more TVT to talk about later on, and more HeRoMaRinE games to talk about, because coming up next, it's going to be Spirit. It's going to be HeRoMaRinE. But of course, before we move on to that matchup, any final thoughts about this first series of the day?
Could not have been... I'm not that surprised by the results, although it's a very impressive result for sure for HeRoMaRinE, like extremely impressive. But the way that it happened is what kind of blows me away, because it feels like HeRoMaRinE just kind of outperformed GuMiho.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you have a little bit of weird flukiness that can happen, but it didn't really feel like that. It felt like all of the critical decisions were just better. We're just better by HeRoMaRinE. That's not to say GuMiho didn't make good plays. He made quite a few good plays, but it felt like HeRoMaRinE responded appropriately and just really kept his head level. I'm very, very impressed with how well HeRoMaRinE played, and I think I would like to change my answer, please, to HeRoMaRinE makes it out of this group, because he looks really solid.
So I'm quoting you at this point. If he doesn't get out, it's because Steadfast cursed him after our first series.
Probably.
There we go. That being said, though, we have more series on the way there. Actually, it's going to be a little bit of a wait because Spirit is currently playing on the main stage, and he is playing Scarlet. So it's a Spirit TVZ. We know what that's like. This one may take a little bit. I'm going to put my best guess up for the timer, but when we're back, it's going to be Spirit. It's going to be it's going to be Spirit. It's going to be HeRoMaRinE. More TVT action. See y'all very shortly.
More happen with them. Oh, as we do see the Raven